Well, we made it. It's Monday, and it's still hot, and things are still crazy, and they're going to get worse. And I'm sad to say that. I really don't like to continually pound on this negative drum, but it's reality, and there's not a damn thing that can be done about it. It's out of our hands. We have had the game taken away from us. Or did we negligently lose it? Doesn't matter either way. It's probably a combination. We're in real trouble, and I am expecting that Donald Trump, who has furthered the so-called national debt by $6.4 trillion that we know about in just 3.5 years, that debt is going to come knocking. It already is. And what's going to happen? Hyperinflation. We're going to see the cost of basic goods and services go up and up as more dollars required to buy what we used to be able to buy. Inflation. Watch what happens. It's not going to be good. Story from Business Insider. Jerry Kushner's original coronavirus battle plan was dumped because he thought the virus was hitting Democrat states harder. What a twit. Trump says he may act to stop 30 million Americans from being evicted. Well, Donald, that's a pretty smart thing to do. It might just gain you 10 or 20 million votes. Somebody's got to help these people. There's at least 30 million out there, Americans, many families, who are facing the street. The street is no joke. Oh, here's a cute one from antiempire.com. The Babylon Bee reports that the Biden campaign says he is so close to a vice presidential pick, he can smell her. Ugh. Is that creepy or what? Hello, Donald. Welcome back.
Hey, how's it going, Jeff? How you doing? Good to be here.
Well, I'm just imagining the creeper smelling his vice presidential
That's a way to put it. That's quite a way to quite a way to describe it, isn't it?
Well, he does like to smell little girls' heads and
right?
God only knows what else. Yeah. This is bad. Now here's another one. Speaking of Biden, let me just do this real quick, then we'll jump into our conversation. I got to click this over here, do that there, and push this here. This will be going up in headlines shortly. Now, as you know, the creeper has been told or has decided that his mental state is too far gone to engage in any interviews with any of the Sunday news shows or any of the so-called mainstream media journalists. So he's not going to do that. The guy's literally hiding. He's hiding. There's supposedly going to be 3 debates. Don't hold your breath. He is physically looking more senile all the time. He is rapidly deteriorating. You can see it. If you look at his eyes, they're little thin, little tiny, senior citizen type eyes. I mean, real senior. He looks like a man who is a resident of Shady Acres. He's just a placeholder. All right, hold on. I'm going to play a little bit of this, Donald, just a little. He's groveling to the Muslims here, as only a left-wing Marxist, Leninist, communist can do. Here's this: the Muslims, of course, the radicalized Muslims, the death cult Muslims. He wants to bring them on board. Here's the creeper.
I will end the Muslim ban on day one. Day one.
So he says he's going to end the Muslim ban on day one. That, of course, relating to Donald Trump's slowdown on the importation of Muslims.
From the Prophet Muhammad instructs.
Now he reads.
Whomever among you sees a wrong, let him change it with his hand. If he is not able, then with his tongue. If he is not able, then with his heart.
Make no mistake, people. 2020 is our year. Let's dive into it with 2020 vision. We can see clearly that America is fighting for its very soul.
We all come from the same root here in terms of our fundamental basic beliefs. And I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, for being engaged, for committing to action this November. It matters. Your voice is your vote. Your vote is your voice. Muslim Americans' voices matter. I'll be a president who seeks out and listens to and incorporates the ideas and concerns of Muslim Americans on everyday issues that matter most to our communities.
Sure, Joe, let's install Sharia law, among other things. This guy I wonder how many takes it took to get this particular recording done. We are really in unprecedented waters here. These are dangerous waters we're in. Donald, tell us more. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've each presidential election, we most of us that are awake say, they've topped themselves again, and they continually do. You don't think they can do any worse, but I mean, Donald Trump is basically the same as he was 4 years ago without the revolutionary rhetoric, and he has now almost a full term of broken promises and flip-flops and everything. So it's rhetoric when he falls back on it, doesn't have quite the same meaning that it did last time. But Biden is no Hillary. I mean, Hillary Clinton, despite her physical problems last campaign, which seemed to have cleared up, certainly is still as sharp as a tack. Can speak well and all that.
She's on her game, and she's being very quiet. Too quiet.
Yeah, she is. And I think that the most incredible thing about this with Biden is that if I'm working for the Democrats and I'm looking at, all of those other candidates, they were all horrible as far as other than Tulsi Gabbard, who I liked quite a bit, but she's certainly not my first choice. But and Andrew Yang I thought was interesting, but all of them really are certainly hideous policy-wise. All the rest of them, as far as anybody that loves liberty and respects freedom and so forth. But most of them are competent. They can speak. They can make. They can use that social justice warrior rhetoric. They can all do a better job of that than Joe Biden. Why they suddenly coalesced around Joe Biden, I have no idea. And this is where you
get
into
told to. This is a decision. Yeah.
But this is where if you're running. If you're looking at this as a competition, which we know these presidents are selected rather than elected, you wouldn't do that, because not only is he one of your weakest candidates to begin with, but he's clearly he's losing it. He's got dementia or something, so you're not even going to be able to have any debates. So it should be pretty easy to make the case against Donald Trump if you have an articulate person up there but they're not going to have that. So I don't know what they're doing, and is this to make it so that Trump gets reelected? I don't know. I didn't think Trump was going to get elected last time. It looks to me like he has no chance this time, but he's up against somebody who doesn't know where he is.
We got to remember, 50% of Americans who can vote didn't vote last time. Now we're faced, and I'll repeat it in case any of you missed it, we're faced with the biggest challenge in American presidential history. We're either voting to maintain what's left of our Constitution and our republic, or we're going to vote for communist Marxism. It's very simple. That's the choice. Yeah. Forget the labels. Forget the people. These are two issues that we're voting on now. This is our future.
And you're right. I mean, it is as bad as the old order was. As much as I've criticized it in my writing, it looks pretty good in comparison to what might come, and certainly we're getting a taste of that. And I was writing today, and I've been trying to write a lot. Of course, I'm losing more and more people on the left because I'm writing this as a liberal. Everything I write is because I'm a classical liberal. I'm a populist. But when you have things like I wrote a thing today about book burning, and I really we had a very popular book, Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury, which was about book burning. I would not be surprised to see Fahrenheit 451 burned in the street. I mean, that would be the ultimate irony, to have the book about book burning be burned.
Are you kidding? They don't care they don't care what statue they're toppling. They don't care what books they're burning. This is not an intellectual movement. These are Stone Age creeps, is what they are.
And we, when you think of book burning in the public mind, the persona goes back, the Nazis burned books. And we think of that. I remember the Waltons had a very poignant episode years ago back in the 70s. It still stuck with me when John Boy got all incensed because there was an anti-German fervor in Walton's Mountain, and they were burning books, German books. And it was very, for television, it was pretty amazing because they kind of made, the Germans sympathetic. And John Boy pointed out that one of the books they were burning was the Bible in German. And now, and of course they all felt terrible and realized how awful that was. Now here we are in Portland, they've just been caught burning Bibles. And Jeff, 50 years ago. Oh,
absolutely. They know what they're doing. Oh,
I mean, 50 years ago, 99.9% of Americans would have been up in arms over Bibles being burned in an American city. Now it's just a big shrug. And I looked, because I posted on it, people said, look at the source. It's Breitbart or Christian News or something like that, Christian Post. The mainstream media simply doesn't report it. They claim it doesn't happen. Same thing with
right.
At the same time, again, I'm not any kind of a pro-life activist or whatever. I believe all life is sacred, but you got to be consistent. If you're saying that Black Lives Matter, graffiti can be everywhere, all over the streets. Mayors can participate, as de Blasio did in New York, in actually desecrating the streets with it. He's called that graffiti. It's not a mural. But
he had to please his wife, remember? He's married to a black woman.
Exactly. But however you look at it, you had some activists, and they were trying to be politically correct. They chalked, and they just used chalk, which is really not desecrating anything because it washes away in the rain.
Sidewalk chalk for kids. That's what they are. That's what they should have used.
But this group tried to do that, and they were just simply saying Black pre-Lives Matter. They were a pro-life group, and I thought it was a very clever message across from Planned Parenthood. They were trying to beat them at their own game. There were 6 squad cars on the scene in Washington D.C. in the morning when they went there. They arrested them. And this, Jeff, you can't have a country like this, Jeff, where it goes back to Animal Farm. Some pigs are more equal than others.
Correct.
That's our entire society is becoming like that. Some graffiti is more equal than others. Some freedom of speech is more equal than, that's become the entire credo of this crazy authoritarian left, which it pains me to look at them. Somebody was talking to me about the left today, and I said, well, I'm just going by the people that claim they're progressive today. That's not my left. It's not where Cynthia McKinney or Cindy Sheehan or Dennis Kucinich, Ralph Nader, even the people that I still respect and hopefully me are. But we're not welcome there. None of them are going to be invited to the Democratic National Convention.
Forget it. Yeah,
they don't have any place there because their voice is for peace. And they talk about the disparity of wealth and our endless wars and things like that. This group, I don't know what they're doing, but this authoritarianism, whatever propaganda they ever used about any of our enemies, whether it was the Nazis or the dreaded Hun or going back to the Spanish in the War of 1898, the dirty, sneaky, rotten Japs, Saddam Hussein, whoever they were demonizing at the moment. What the left is doing now, whether they're not killing people necessarily, but they are crushing dissent or trying to crush dissent, and they're trying to crush freedom of speech like no group in America is that. Whatever they said about the commies back in the 50s.
That's right. These guys they're way ahead. No, you're right. They've got the media to help them. That's part of the game.
And they don't even blink. It's amazing how it's like. No. It doesn't get any better. Okay, if you like, you can. Why, if you can put Black Lives Matter across the street from a Trump Plaza to make a statement, why can't you put Baby Lives Matter across from a Planned Parenthood? Why is that? I mean, you can't have that. You can't have some words that some people can say and others can get fired for.
We're getting sucker punched here all the way. The silent majority should have stood up and simply drowned the internet with all lives matter memes. All lives matter.
Absolutely.
And this stop discriminating against Asians, Latinos, whites, black. Come on. All lives matter. There are a lot of go ahead.
No, and John F. Kennedy said when he was trying to pass the original civil rights law, and he made a great speech and has never been credited for it. But it's at its time he said race has no place in American life or law. That should be the credo. The only reason you ever put race on any document is for some form of discrimination to occur. There's no other reason for it. And so let's stop talking about that. But no one wants to do. And ironically, because the entire civil rights movement was built, Martin Luther King says, judge somebody by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. The left today does all they do is judge by the color of the skin. They want they want to let's give money to black people, let's give reparations, all that. This is not what that civil rights movement was about. They were supposed to get equality, not favoritism. You don't stop discrimination by another kind of discrimination. But this is where we're at now, and you can't. It is such. We have whether it was through Bill Clinton appointing so many judges, certainly Barack Obama, the apparatus there, the machinery of the cities especially, and you're seeing it with the way they're responding to these protests. What's entrenched there are so many awful people. The people there's so many of them, whether they're affirmative action appointees that still hate white people, or just liberal social justice white social justice warriors that are like the judge Amy Berman that railroaded Roger Stone, people like that.
Hypocrite,
yeah. These are the people. They're in power. The Lori Lightfoots of the world. These people have power, and we allowed it to happen. And I don't know it's not going to be easy wresting them from power, because you've allowed it. It's everywhere. They're running everything. There are so few decent, and you're seeing it with the madness that's going on. First of all, the crazy lockdown that appears perpetual, where everybody's running around in masks and everything's going to stay closed down. Nobody's talking up about it at all, with the exception of now. I'm starting to write a book on this. I hope to try to, if I can write it fast enough, I want to get it out there. But there's a lot to be said, because this is a huge story, and then you throw on top of it these protests, which are resulting in absolute craziness, especially in the cities. With it's basically open war on American history, for good or bad.
American history, Don, is disappearing right now while we're talking. The internet, AI, ghouls are at work right now, going through and revising and deleting historical information that we really need. It's happening around the clock. They are changing history by deleting it and revising it. It's nothing new, but it's happening all the time right now. History, as we were taught in school, Donald, doesn't exist anymore. You can't find it.
And it's so, when you read your Orwell, Animal Farm I mentioned, but 1984 is the big one to read for this, because this is what Winston Smith, the hero of 1984, did for a living. That was his job. People would become unpersons. They would be thrown down the memory hole. That's where that term comes from. So many of our terms come from that book. This was his job, to rewrite history. And he worked in, the Ministry of Truth, and that's what they did. And we're seeing it everywhere. They're rewriting history constantly, so that if somebody like myself, as a historian that writes about history, I can't even discuss these subjects with most people, because if you want to discuss one of my favorite topics, so the founding of the country and the founding fathers, you can't do it, because everything is built around the social justice warrior identity politics. In that case, slavery. So all they want to talk about is, well, they were racist, they had slaves, and the subject ends right there. They don't care about the timeless sentiments in the Declaration of Independence and the framework of the government, the three separate but equal branches, and the separation of powers, checks and balances. These are wonderful things if you have honest people in there, but they don't want to talk about that. The whole thing becomes they had slaves. And blacks, and nonsense like blacks built the country, slaves built the country. This is crazy. Again, it's nothing against black people, but that just simply wasn't the case. I had a great grandfather who was one of the people who was a professional carpenter that worked on the Washington Monument, and that's the kind of people that did that. They were tradesmen. They were professionals. They're the ones who literally built it. Slave labor was slave labor. They used it for the grunt work. They didn't use it to build these fantastic works of architecture in Washington, D.C. but they would have you believe that. And I'm sorry, that's not, any kind of bigotry. It's reality, but they don't want to hear reality, and they want to rewrite history through the social justice warrior prism of today.
I don't want to trivialize it, but they are the least educated, least wise, least intelligent group I have ever seen. Talking about the Gen Z and the street rabble that are running around calling themselves protesters, when in point of fact they're not protesters, they're rioters, they're criminals. Be right back. Oh, here's another good one. If any of you have any lingering doubts about people and why they might seek the highest levels of government, let's just go no further than Jerry Kushner and the Princess, right? This is funny. We've talked about this. I've mentioned it many times. They're lining their pockets as fast as they can. That's what this is all about. Jerry and the Princess scored at least $36 million in outside income last year while serving as volunteers to El Presidente. $36 million that we know about. These are new disclosures as reported in the Boston Globe. They probably have made $1 billion already or are set up to do it. There's no joke about this. They know what they're doing. And this is all by the book. When you get to the top, you get to make money. Remember all the different agreements they made? They had long-term exclusivities and granted by the Chinese Communist government. They're set. They're going to make so much money. It's ridiculous. And they talk about the evil Clintons. Look, they're all the same. There's no difference. And I will repeat, it makes no difference whatsoever who's in the Oval Office and hasn't since John Kennedy. It's all controlled by people you don't even think about or know or see. Right? You're just seeing the other end of the puppet string with the Princess and Jerry and his 19-inch chest walking and talking and counting their money. It's really incredible, the whole thing. They're all filthy rich.
Sure.
Let's not forget Pelosi. They're all making money. Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
No, and they all. I mean, I used, I think, all of them as examples in Survival of the Richest. I mean, Jared Kushner's father bought his way, I believe it was into Harvard, where he wasn't remotely qualified to be there, and that's what a lot of these guys, whether it's George W. Bush or, I mean, much like the athletes that get into these colleges aren't remotely qualified academically, they get into play sports. A lot of
they can't read or write when they go in, and they can't read or write when they come out. Many of them.
And no one bats an eye. You have an entrance exam or something. But in the case of the George W. Bushes of the world, Jared Kushner's, probably, I don't know, Donald Trump didn't go to an Ivy League university, but certainly that probably would have been the case with him as well, where clearly they don't have the academic aptitude to get in there. But so they're building nothing. Jared Kushner's father was incredibly wealthy. He's another one that, like Gerald Celente says, was born in third base and thinks he hits a home run. He didn't. He's not remotely, he clearly is in over his head and doesn't know what he's doing. He's given Trump horrible advice and disagrees with all of Trump's rhetoric. The princess is the princess. Most of our daughters, of course we're going to please them. Okay, honey, sure. I have a daughter and I understand what that would be like. To me, if any of Trump's children should have been in the White House, I say what you want about it. I'm pretty impressed with Donald Trump Jr. He's very articulate. He makes a case, and he seems to be more of a real deal as far as some of that rhetoric.
He's the only one who can actually project intelligent thought, in my view.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, so why isn't he in the White House? I don't understand that. Yeah. I mean, they couldn't argue that. They didn't argue with Ivanka or Kushner, but he's got the wrong people around him, obviously.
Well, just remember, Donald tried to send Jerry and the Princess back to New York, and they just said no. This is 2.5 years ago. They said, no, we're not going. And they stayed right there because Jerry is tied into the Mossad in Israel. This is the Lubavitcher sect It's a cult in Judaism. Remember, if you don't know about the Lubavitchers, you better learn. This is who they are. Jerry and the princess, and some suspect that Donald is completely compliant in following Lubavitcher guidelines. So
Sure.
we can't disprove or prove it, but that's what's talked about.
Yeah, and this is the kind of leadership we get. You have either, as I pointed out, the affirmative action type people that you see in all the cities who are just put there because of what they are and not how qualified they are. And almost all of them are they're activists, political activists, racial activists, and they have an agenda. They're not there to provide any kind of leadership. And on the other hand, you have this kind of old boy or old girl network in the case of Ivanka, where you're still having, relatives of the rich and famous. They're getting appointed to jobs they're not remotely qualified for. Gerald Kushner is not competent at all. He didn't even get into the Ivy League university on his own. His father bought his way in there. Same thing
it's
with
the same old story. Let's not single him out. It happened. The
right,
ratio. The ratio. These are facts. This is not prejudice or in any way anti-Semitic. The ratio of Jewish students in these elite Ivy League colleges is far and away off balance from their normal ratio in society. They buy their way in. It's an old story. Nothing should be shocking to anyone. It's just the way they do business. Go ahead.
And however you look at it, we're far, far away from any kind of statesman. I don't even know who the last statesman would be that we had in American politics. Maybe
I have to think about that. Yeah.
Maybe Robert Taft, Mr. Republican. But I mean, we haven't had any statesmen for a very long time. You go back to the way the founding of the country, and that's why I talk about the founding fathers so much, because certainly they had their flaws, but these were the 1% of their time. They were just picture Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and people like that getting and deciding to risk their entire fortunes and decide to create a better government and devote it to liberty and freedom. I mean, it's unprecedented. It never happened in the history of the world, and it hasn't happened since. That's why the American experiment was so wonderful, why we celebrated it for so long. So it hurts me so much to think that Americans are so stupid and so, ill-educated about their founding, and somehow from all that and all the beautiful words from which we built this republic, it has come down to, well, they had slaves. And that's it.
Well, my friend, that you just put your finger on it. The founding fathers were nothing but evil slaveholders and rapists and all the rest of it. That's all they were. These communists in the streets are leading the mindless minions around by the nose. And by the way, many of these alleged females have hog rings in their nose. If you've seen them, they actually do. They have hog rings in their nose. This is where we're going. This is tomorrow? I don't think so. These people need a hell of a dose of reality, but they don't seem to be getting it. And no one seems to be forcing them to look at what is vast and huge all around them. And that's a beautiful ideal embodied by the Constitution. They hate it. They want it gone. They want to tear this whole thing down. That's what they want.
And I think this whole, what has gone on since this pandemic started and now these protests, you're seeing how bad, and I think I've commented this before, how bad the leadership is from top to bottom, from the local school board up. We knew Congress was bad. We knew our presidents are bad. But now we're seeing it at every level. They say change occurs from the bottom up. Well, we'd have to go pretty low. I mean, maybe we can find an honest dog catcher somewhere. I don't know. But we have corruption everywhere. Not only corruption, but incompetence and people that there doesn't appear to be any common sense at any level. Some of the look at the school boards where they had the transgender story hours reading to little kids. I mean, who thinks of that idea?
That's child abuse. It's pedophilia. Sorry, that's what it is.
It's madness to think that somebody in charge at that level decided this is a good idea, but that's not to pick on just that, but you see that whenever you look at. And really, you examine anything, and that's the problem, is that we would need a founding fathers type at all levels to try to enact change. I've fond of saying, you need a huge vacuum cleaner.
We need great men and women in this country, and we don't seem to have any. I think a lot of it, honestly, Don, is that the smart ones will have nothing to do with politics. They know full well that it's a complete waste of time. It's a con job.
Right.
It's a scam.
Yeah.
It's all money.
And
That's all it is.
Exactly. And it takes a certain, when I was coaching youth sports for a long time, I would always have a problem with the people that would be like the commissioners of the leagues, the league directors and commissioners, because, none of these people are getting paid. But I recognize it takes – same thing with homeowners associations, presidents. It takes a certain personality to want to do that stuff. And it's always a very difficult personality, sometimes a psychopathic type personality, but you can't really complain because you're not – the first thing is, well, you're not volunteering to do it, right? So if you have those personalities at that level, what are you getting in a corrupt representative body where almost everybody there is completely corrupt? You get the good guys like Ron Paul here or there, but for the most part, it's corrupt. So you have to be corrupt to get in there because the party, one of the two duopoly, the Tweedledum and Tweedledee parties, has to get behind you, the machine, or you can't run outside of that. And
no, you can't.
No outsider can get in, and no independent can get in because we have this awful two-party system where Americans, they just won't vote for a third party. It's just, my friend Cindy Sheehan is fond of saying, people say we need a third party. First, we need a second party. And that's the way to look at it.
Did she say that? Good for her.
That, yeah.
Are you in frequent touch with her?
Yeah.
Will you tell her hello from me, please? And it's been too long. I haven't had her on the program. And tell her she's always welcome. It's been too many years. Time just goes by.
I admire her so much because she, reading her posts and stuff on Facebook, she's very unhappy with today's left, as I am, because she's the real deal. She probably is a socialist. I don't know what she calls herself, but she's dedicated her life to fighting for peace, and she has the most reasonable.
She's one of the most principled people around, and that's
absolutely
the truth. Yeah.
And she's Gerald Celente, your old friend. He's her and him and Cindy Sheehan and him founded Occupy Peace, which they have rallies. They can't draw enough people, and because they're not run by George Soros and the people or whoever runs BLM.
They're paying people to show up. They're paying these rioters. They're paying them. Understand? That's one of the reasons. And the other reason is that the boots on the ground riot leaders, and they're believe me, this is all coordinated. The lieutenants on the ground know exactly what they're doing. They know how to handle the mindless idiots. They know how to channel rage. They know how to push buttons. They're really good at it. So it's really no problem. Generation Z, the last letter in the alphabet, will be the last generation. Why? Because all generations from now on will be and are being made into GMOs. They're genetically modified organisms. Their genes are being changed, and it's just beginning. And within a few years, we will have no longer the right to call ourselves indigenous humans on this planet. We will have been revamped, revised, and reworked, and changed. We'll be GMOs. That's the truth.
Yeah, and it's when you look at some of them, certainly you have to believe they're being paid because they're a lot of times what they're doing is nonsensical. It makes no sense.
Of course.
I've tried to say, what does burning Bibles have to do with police brutality? How is that? What point are you making by that? Or Black Lives Matter.
This is all about violence, Donald. It's violence. Yeah. Violence of any type. Burning books, I don't care. Breaking windows, it's violence. I've been in the middle of crowds who have been, I guess you call it, the term is mob psychology. And it's bizarre. Something very primal takes over. And these people just go nuts. It's like they all start thinking the same way. You've seen the flocks of blackbirds or starlings in the sky, hundreds of thousands of them flying at breakneck speed and all of them turning on a dime together. How did they do that? There's some some subliminal consciousness that is connecting all of them. And the same kind of thing on a more primitive basis happens with these mobs. They just get in this head. They want to kill, and they'll kill. It's like the Roman Colosseum. Thumbs down. Kill.
Exactly. It's most people are followers, and that's why I said, the vast majority of people are. That's why if you promoted a Huey Long type figure, somebody that was a real populist out there, the people would eventually flock to them because if they sensed it was popular. But people are followers. There's a lemming-like quality, and no matter what it is, like you said, if there whatever protesters are out there, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that think they're marching for some kind of cause. They're not all government infiltrators.
There are a lot of passersby, and there are also a lot of spectators who want to go out and see the riot. They want to go watch. Let's go watch the rioters.
Sure.
Let's go watch.
They used to have picnics and watch the hangings. I mean, this stuff is there's a great.
Look at the French Revolution.
Right. And one of my favorite books from the 19th century is called The Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. I believe the guy's name was Charles Mackay, but I remember reading.
That's an interesting. Get that book, and maybe you can pull some extracts from it. Whatever. Yeah. That's important. That's really important.
But he talked about how
the madness of crowds.
Popular and there's of course now I certainly we believe that obviously there's a conspiratorial element there that manipulates the crowds, but the people in charge, the puppet masters, whatever you want to call them, they know about human nature and they know how easy people are to manipulate, and they remember the history. Right. I mean, families, Jeff, just think how hideous that was. This was popular entertainment. They would bring the families out and have a picnic and watch the big hanging. I mean, how is that entertainment? And you mentioned about the Roman Colosseum. Obviously, they were throwing the Christians to the lions. I mean, this was entertainment. And
the Aztecs, they'd kill people, tear their hearts out, surrounded with crowds around those pyramidal-shaped things. Then they'd throw the bodies down. They'd tumble down the stairs. They're very steep stairs. You know what happened to the bodies after they took the hearts out? People would take them home and cook them. That's how they got a lot of their protein. The Aztecs don't want you to know this because their history is hallowed, but that's what they did. They ate them.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I mean, so we haven't come any way at all. When you see, I've said for a long time, if I didn't have any conscience, I would try to develop a show like a live execution on air, and you could compete to who could pull the switch, and I think it would be really popular. Or you could have a group.
You're so right. You're so right.
Who's going to be executed, be like a Survivor type of thing, and you could vote off, who's going to end up, the rest of the people would vote who's going to be executed live on TV, and then you could have a contest for what lucky
We're close to that. We're close to that. They had snuff films 30, 40 years ago. They still have them, I guess, and that we're real close. Oh, that's an easy one. I agree.
That's why this Ghislaine Maxwell thing, whatever happens there, we're talking about the snuff. That's the dirty underbelly of this. Not only child sex trafficking, but just doing a little bit of investigation. When you peel back a little bit, you find not only the popularity of snuff films, which are very popular. But also we know about the drinking the children's blood and getting into cannibalism and the adrenochrome and the Black Eye Club. And all these things that are real.
Hey, what's that? I just had I got a story up on that in news going up shortly. What is the black eye bit? What's happening with that? It's the left eye, and it's the same eye. What are they getting injected in there? What's happening?
No, they claim that this is they're not all getting in fights, but they claim that whatever this the idea, the reason why snuff films are powerful is that apparently a young child, when they're in absolute terror, they excrete some kind of a hormone called adrenochrome.
Oh, it's adrenaline. It's super. That's why when you eat a steak, you feel terrific because the cows are absolutely petrified. They know they're going to die, and so their adrenal glands dump. And when you eat the meat, you're eating adrenaline, and it's a match to ours, and you get high, you get buzzed on it. Sure.
Yeah, so that it's something like that. But apparently, one of the side effects from it is it gives you a black eye.
No kidding. This I didn't know. I've got a lot of pictures of black eyes from adrenochrome.
You see all the celebrities. I mean, it's amazing because when I first saw that, I said, wait a minute, how many, older adults do you know walking around that are just like getting punched in the eye and getting a shiner? I mean, come on.
No, there's a cause.
Ridiculous.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. But how does it, I don't know how it works, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's
and so
bizarre.
This is the real secret. And so that's why it's so, and this is all tied in to what this Ghislaine Maxwell is. I mean, I still think there's that's a very mysterious why she gave herself up. She was free. Why she decided to come back?
Something's up with that. She had professional protection around her at all times. She was either given up, thrown up, or set up. I don't know which, but something's up. That's weird.
Obviously, it's a glimmer of hope, and it's a very small hope. It's like hoping to win the lottery, but it's a glimmer of hope that somehow, because if she talked and named names, that the swamp gets drained overnight, because this is, those names on there are who's who of Hollywood and Washington D.C. and power brokers. It begins the process, because then people, the average the riffraff out there, the sheeple, will have their eyes open. Wait a minute, oh my God, Tom Hanks and Bill Gates and all these people. These were frequent flyers on the Lolita Express, and all their lies and cover-ups are gone, because the people, they can forgive a lot of things, but most people that are parents, especially, if they think their heroes were involved in any way with, trafficking kids sexually, not to mention something like, scaring them to death so they can get some kind of adrenal rush and retain their youth or whatever they think would happen. This is beyond an eating or cannibalism or whatever. This is something, again, that most people can't even begin to fathom. They're going to look at you like, what? But if they start hearing it on mainstream news, and I don't think that will happen, but I despite my pessimism, I watched a lot of Frank Capra movies, Jeff, and I'm still hoping that that happy ending is going to work out when things look bleakest. That somehow the Clarence or the Guardian Angels, something's going to happen so that we have an uplifting ending. And I know that's unrealistic, but you have to find hope wherever you can. And the fact she's still alive, and there's a possibility there. And
I don't know. I don't know where this is going to run, but she literally has it within her power to take down a big chunk of Western power brokers. No question. I just don't know. Maybe they're using her to whip some people into line who are, kind of acting like they don't need to be controlled anymore. And they say, well, we got Ghislaine in there now, so you better be careful. By the way, I'm going to run a story in the top section called Pizzagate and Adrenochrome Revisited. And it's a video. And I want you to look at that, because in the video, the black eye syndrome, you're going to see a lot of celebrities with that black eye.
Absolutely.
It's really weird. Thanks for bringing that up.
No, it is. And there's, I don't know that it relates to that, but the other weird thing they do, and we see even people like Greta Thunberg, young kids, that do that thing where they make the circle over the one eye. And I don't, it's some kind of a cult weird thing, but when you see whether it's the hook 'em horn things, the circle over the eye, the black eye club, clearly if people say they don't believe in conspiracies, none of these people are, they're in the royal family in England, somebody in Hollywood, somebody in Washington D.C. They're not connected in any other way except they're elite. So why do you don't see anybody else? I don't know anybody that walks around and gives the hook 'em horns, the devil salute, or does
Never
the stupid
seen
circle
one
over
person.
their eye.
No.
But people in power do it all the time. So is there an innocent explanation? I don't think so. And people ask why I believe in conspiracies, because this is what the people in charge conspire. This is what they do. They act against the interest of the public. And this is standard operating procedure for them. This is the way they do business. So yes, Virginia, there are conspiracies.
Yeah, you mentioned Frank Capra, the wonderful filmmaker. I had the great privilege to spend nearly an hour with Frank Capra, interviewing and talking with him on film. And he was so happy with the interview he was retired at the time, of course. He actually requested that we make a color copy of it for him and ship it to him down in Palm Springs. It was just really it's a great man.
I'd love to see that if you had it. I would love to see that.
I don't have it. I wish I did. It's somewhere in a vault somewhere. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Donald. Terrific information as always. Great perspective. We appreciate you. Talk soon. Take care.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right, I'm going to run this story. Pizzagate and Adrenochrome revisited. The Black Eye Club. Watch. You'll see it in headlines going up in about half an hour.